So here I am. I'm about to start a new project. And as always, when I start a new project, I start with the character and designing the character's look. So where I normally start looking for inspiration is Pinterest. So here I am at Pinterest. And I really like Pinterest. I didn't understand it at first, but now I totally understand it. This is a great place for getting inspiration. The thing I like about Pinterest is that when you like something and you click on it, it will show you more of things that look like what you clicked on. I'm gonna try to focus on finding fashion for your character. And in Pinterest, you're able to save, I think they're called pin boards. So this is a pin board where anytime I see something that is related to fashion that I like, that I think will fit on my character, I drop it in this board right here. So in this board you can see we have all types of clothing, and if you notice, a lot of the clothing in here is front view clothing. So if you look at this dress and outfit, it's from the front view, and that's because it's easier to place on my digital doll if it's from the front view like this. So it's like having an infinite fashion closet right here. It goes on and on forever, and my character has almost infinite clothing. So there are many methods on how you can get clothing on your character. In the beginning, if I seen something that I'd like online, I would download it to this folder here on my hard drive, and I would then bring it into Photoshop. So for example, I'll pick this outfit right here and I'll bring it into Photoshop. The easiest way to remove a background in Photoshop is to just click this button at the bottom that says remove background. So Photoshop automatically removed the background and put a layer mask on it. I'll open the image of my character and simply just drag over the outfit into, you can see the resolution difference, that's why it's so small here. But you can always upscale things if you want them larger. But in this case, just to get a feel of how it looks, I'll just scale it and just quickly drop it into place. I could nudge it a little bit. And this is how I would normally do it. Lately, I've been experimenting with ways to do this in AI. So let's go look at some examples. I picked this leather jacket right here and a few other pieces of clothing to experiment with. I also got this leather skirt, and a little bit more interesting, I got this leather skirt as well and this leather jacket. I started with this image of the character, and it's basically just her face. I don't really care so much about her clothing at this point. So in order to bring in images, you have your prompt box right here, and you have this plus, and you could click it and you could upload from your device or choose from library, which is things that you've already used. And I brought in the jacket, I brought the face in, and I brought in the skirt. And then I typed in the prompt right here that I wanted. So I said swap the woman's clothing, put the woman in the red leather jacket and the black leather skirt that has the red and white stripes at the side of the skirt. Background is transparent, which is cool about this. You could also use transparent. So once you hit remix, it will combine the imagery. And this was the result that it gave me. It wasn't a perfect result, but it gets you 99% of the way, or at least 90% of the way, and saves you a lot of work of having to do a lot of Photoshop stuff. For example, the face, even though it's very similar to my character, it's not the same face. The hairstyle is the same hairstyle, but the face itself is not. But that's not a problem because I could replace the face in Photoshop, which I normally do anyways. I'm more concerned about the clothing, the pose that she's standing facing the camera, and as well the body and lighting. In this case, the skirt, it didn't, it got it close, but one side, both sides supposed to be red, but it did one side black, one side red. Not perfect, but again, it gets you majority of the way, and it helps you deal with things like lighting and shadows you don't really have to worry about because the AI does it. Another thing, it has difficulty showing the full body, but you can see down here, these are the inputs that were input. This is the original skirt right here, and you can see the original skirt compared to the skirt that's on her. The jacket, they got the jacket pretty close, and then the face. So those are the 3 images I brought in, and this was all done by AI. And you get multiple versions. This is a second version. So he gave me 2 versions, and this second version, you can see the jacket looks similar. Again, the face is different. The skirt is shorter, and it doesn't really have the red at the sides. There's a little bit of red in the zipper. But this is just to show you that it's not an exact, replication of your character or exact representation of your character, but it does get you very close, and you can use these elements in Photoshop to combine on top of the character that I already have. So let's look at another example, and I tried with this outfit, and basically I have the jacket and the skirt, and this one, again, the character is different, but the jacket and the skirt came identical. I wasn't too concerned about the pose in this. I was just trying to see if it could duplicate, and I knew it wasn't going to get my character the same, so I didn't even use an image of my character. I just said create a woman wearing, an ebony skinned woman wearing this jacket and this skirt. Another version, just testing it out to see variations, different poses. Now, I was just curious to see, can I pose the character wearing the same clothing? When you're working with characters, you're gonna discover that posing is very important. Not at this stage, but for the later stages. This image here is ideally what you're looking for. The character standing facing forwards. That way you can take the clothing from the character and bring it into Photoshop and line it up. So by looking at what I use as input images, I did use the face, so the face is closer, not exact. I used the jacket, I used the skirt, and to get the pose correct, I used my line art. So this line art is what I told the AI, use this line art to pose the character. And that way I could get her looking directly in the pose. And this line art is very useful. It came in very handy a lot of times. In this example, you can see that it added the shoes, it added the stockings and everything, and has a full body. However, if you really look at it, it's making the character shorter and shorter every time. And that's a bug or something, I'm not sure, but to show that there are other AI alternatives of putting clothing on your character, I've chosen these same 3 images as my inputs to try within Cling AI. And to show you, as you can see here, Cling AI did not do a great job. To compare the original outfit to what Cling produced, you can see the jacket, definitely not the same. The skirt, it messed up. The text, it didn't even come close to the design. It didn't do a good as job as Sora. Here is the second try. Still didn't do the jacket correct. Did even worse job with the skirt. The third version, just as bad, and it even removed her feet. Like, what does that have to do with her clothing? This is the 4th version. And what I also notice about Cling that I dislike, if you look around the character in the gray areas, there's boxes that have a lot of distortion and noise in the image. So you can see where it generated like frames around the character, and you can see a lot of noise in the image. So that's like the diffusion maybe. And obviously her feet are gone as well, and the outfit is not even close. Like the skirt is off, the jacket is totally off, even the fit of the jacket is not correct. That kind of led me to working in Photoshop and doing it myself, because this was one of the first versions that I did try out before Sora and ChatGPT and things like that. Cling may be good at video and one of the best, but for other things it may not be as good. These images here are an interesting experiment. What I was doing, I took a picture of myself posing in my living room, and then I said, can you take the picture of my pose and transfer it to my character? And this is what it created. It's interesting because the object that's behind her in the environment is actually inside my living room. Some other examples right here. And I was actually wearing this t-shirt, and it replaced me and put her in my living room wearing my t-shirt. Again, it's not identical, but this is a good way for getting poses that are difficult to get. If you can pose yourself and then get the character to repeat the pose, that's a good way of getting poses. And these are just some random tests taking the same approach. So right here, this is actually an image from Pinterest, and I want to see what my character would look like in these different outfits. So instead I just said swap the character, change the character to my character, and I provided an image of my character, the same face, and then I used the image that I found on Pinterest. The clothing that it put on the character is not identical to the clothing that was in the original image. If you take a look, it's very similar, but it's not identical. So here I'm just trying out different examples. As mentioned, I'm working on a science fiction project next, and so I wanted to get a quick feel of what it would look like, or what the character would look like in some science fiction style outfits. And this is very fast. You just get an image and no Photoshop work, and the character is in the outfit. Obviously, I would still bring it into Photoshop to fine tune and maybe add more or change certain things. I would definitely have to change the face, because the face is not the same in any. And you can see here, sometimes it makes the character short and sometimes it makes the character tall. So that means the body isn't always the same. So you'd have to bring it and adjust it. But just quick overview, showing you some examples, trying different looks for the character. Doesn't take long to try these examples. You can really use this as a conceptual or experimental stage, not the final necessarily. This is a good example of me showing that it does want to compress the character. It made her like really short for some reason. The outfit is exact. This is the original image right here, and it came very close. I really like the look, but it compressed my character, and I don't know why it does that. But if I wanted to, I could keep on trying and then eventually bring it into Photoshop. Some other looks. This look, it didn't get exact, but it was interesting nonetheless. More variations, and you get the idea by now. In this example, I was trying to change the character's hairstyle. It did change the hairstyle, but it also changed the character. It kept her clothes the same as the source image. Here I was playing around with animated styles of the character wearing the same clothing, and came out very good. I would eventually like to try working on animated projects. For this image, I started with a picture, a generated picture of the character, and I was just testing out presets that Sora has. So all these down here are presets, different styles: film noir, balloon world, cutout cardboard, cartoonify. It was cartoonify I tried with this one, but you can play around with the different styles. So here I wanted to demonstrate that there are definitely multiple ways to create clothing. This image I found on the internet as well, but you can do this, your own version of this, in Adobe Illustrator or a vector program. You could draw it on your tablet or whatever. But this is just a 2D image of a jacket. What's beautiful about this, and something I really love, you get a lot of control, is using, this is sketch to image or image to image, which is a method I love to use for almost everything I design. So looking at the right side, you can see that exact same image, just by prompting and saying I wanted a brown leather jacket, it gave me all these variations on the same jacket. And then the way you would use it would be to download the image and then, in this case, crop out, remove the parts you don't want, which is the person, and keep the jacket. You probably don't want to use an image like this because the jacket is laying flat on a surface. The type of images you want to use are images like this one here, where there's a person in it, because it'll give it the shape of the person's body. And once it has the shape of the person's body, it will make it look a lot more realistic. If it's flat, it will look flat on the character. It won't be convincing. So you want to get something where there's a person in it, and then you can remove the person after. As a quick example, in Photoshop here, you can see when I try to use, and this is also AI, an AI tool to select the body. They also have a tool that is called Select and Mask. And that tool is pretty cool because it will blur out the image and only select. You have a paintbrush and you paint on the areas you want to select. So in this case, I only want to select the jacket, and I'll just paint over the areas of the jacket that I want. It's not perfect, but it will get you most of the way. So I've selected the object. I've done it really quick and dirty, so it looks terrible, but just so the video isn't too long and boring, I did it really quickly. But just goes to show you that the same jacket that was generated, I could then just bring it in, scale it, and put it on the character. There are tools like Warp, where you can bend and twist objects, and this helps to adjust the objects so that they fit better onto the character. Another one of my favorite tools for adjusting clothing is a tool called Puppet Warp. So Puppet Warp, and it puts like a 3D style mesh on it, and then you use these pins and you pin places where you don't want to move. In this case, say I didn't want the jacket itself to move, but then I wanted to adjust the arms, I could put the pins, and you can then warp to adjust and help it to fit onto the character better. Runway came out with a new feature called references, image references. And this is something that I've always wanted, and now I have it. It's basically a version of Cling Elements where you can use different images, but in this case, you're using different images to create a still image, versus Cling, you use different images to create a video. Still trying to use this as my test subject right here, this image. And for my first test, I just said, use this image, and you could name it. And in this case, Laura. And I said, Laura is wearing a mechanic's jumpsuit, standing in an old and dirty, empty automobile workshop. And these were the images that it gave me. And looking at the face, it came a lot closer than when I was using Sora, much, much closer. It gives you 4 versions at a time. So this is another version. And in all the versions, the face looked relatively consistent. It looked the closest I've ever seen in a reference image to the character. But I've also noticed that the clothing, it mixed some of the top that she was wearing with the jumpsuit. This is my second test. So I use this image as my main image, showing a little bit more, because I wanted to see if it would keep her outfit as well as her face. I created this environment. This is AI generated image of this chair and this environment, and I wanted her to sit in the chair. So I prompted and I called the file Laura half, because half of her body is sitting in the green chair, and I didn't name it, it's just called image 2. And the AI came up with these results, these 4 here. And these 4 results are really good. It's the best I've seen. There are some mistakes, however, because if you look in this image here, it has this metallic thing on her. I'm not sure what that is. The second image, it kept the clothing, the chair, the environment, everything, her face, everything looks really, really good. However, it did distort her right arm. I'm not sure why it did that. This is the best one because no mistakes. The face, the right hair, the right clothing, it got everything right. The chair, everything. This as well, character looks great, environment, it did mess up her leg, her knee, but you could bring this into Photoshop and maybe crop out the parts that don't look great and just keep the parts that work and make a new composition. I tried another to run it again, same everything, same prompts, and I got another 4. And these 4 turned out a lot better than the other 4. Less mistakes, different poses, which I like because you could probably get different angles and different views. But very good, very good. Here I'm trying to do a clothing swap test. So I use this image as an input, and this didn't do as well. I prompted to swap the clothing just like I did with Sora, and Sora might have done a better job because these are the results I've gotten. They're not the worst results. The outfit looks great. The character is not the character at all, the face and the hair. The outfit looks similar, not identical. An okay job, but not the best. Still usable. You'd have to change the face in Photoshop, and you'd have to get her into the correct pose as well. I wasn't fully convinced, so I decided to try it again. This was the image of her face once again, and this was the reference image of the clothing. So I tried to paint out the face of this character to see if I get a better result in the face, and this was the outfit. The results I got were the worst results yet as far as clothing swapping. The images look great, but this is not at all the clothing, not even close, and the character is not even the same character. So in my eyes, this is unacceptable and unusable, even though the results as a photograph look great. So for using this for clothing swaps, I don't recommend using Runway in that way. At least I've never had any luck. But I find the best way to use it is in this situation where you have the character already dressed and then you import it into an environment. 2 images, the environment and the character, so far, that seems to work great. And I will definitely use that again.